In the summer of 2017, archaeologists began removing layers of soil from what appeared to be an ordinary stretch of farmland in eastern England. Nothing about the site suggested it would be different from countless excavations before it. But only a few inches below the surface, they uncovered something so unexpected that the excavation slowed to a crawl. With every careful scrape of the trowel, the mystery grew larger. By the time they understood what they were looking at, they realized they had stumbled upon one of the most remarkable Iron Age discoveries ever made in Britain. The work at Burnby Lane began as a standard rescue excavation ahead of a housing development. Led by Paula Ware of MAP Archaeological Practice, the team expected to find the typical traces of ancient agricultural life. The area, nestled in the well-drained soils of East Yorkshire, had been farmland for centuries, concealing a prehistoric cemetery dating from approximately 500 to 200 BC. But as the team cleared the upper topsoil to expose the underlying geology, the outline of one specific pit challenged all routine expectations. Unlike the small uniform grave cuts typical of this Iron Age cemetery, this particular feature was immense. It was a square barrow, but its central pit was dug with an unusual geometry far larger than required for a standard human burial. The sheer scale of the cut suggested something massive had been lowered into the earth. Rather than a simple grave, the ground had been heavily modified to receive a substantial, complex deposit. As the trowels peeled away the first layers of soil within this oversized pit, the team realized they were not looking at a standard interment, but a deliberate, high-effort archaeological anomaly. Why would a community invest such immense physical labor to dig a pit of this scale, only to bury its contents forever? As the archaeologists cleared the damp clay of the central pit, the first solid artifacts began to emerge from the dark earth. Rather than the expected pottery fragments, the trowel struck a narrow curving band of oxidized iron. As the soil was carefully brushed away, this metallic arc revealed itself to be a continuous, circular band, measuring approximately 1 meter in diameter. Soon, a second matching iron ring appeared parallel to the first, standing upright within the grave cut. These intact iron tires belonged to 2 complete wheels, preserved exactly where they had been deposited more than 2,000 years ago. The discovery of these intact iron rims transformed the excavation. This was a highly structured, deliberate interment of a complete wheeled vehicle. The sheer precision required to forge and fit these massive iron bands onto wooden wheels spoke to a highly organized craft tradition. But the presence of these massive wheels only intensified the mystery of the oversized pit. What kind of burial required a fully assembled vehicle to be lowered into the earth? Further careful trowel work in the central pit exposed smaller, delicate metallic components resting in the damp clay. The team recovered elegant bronze fittings, loop-shaped harness rings, and fragments of horse gear. For the excavators at MAP Archaeological Practice, these detailed pieces confirmed a far larger reality. This was not a symbolic deposition of a few spare parts, but the deliberate burial of a complete, fully assembled 2-wheeled chariot. Constructing a vehicle of this caliber demanded a highly coordinated assembly of prehistoric industries. It required master carpenters to select, season, and steam bend the structural timber, skilled blacksmiths to forge and shrink the heavy iron tires, and specialized bronze casters to form the decorative harness fittings. To build such a mobile machine required weeks of intensive, expert labor and secure access to extensive regional trade networks. Placing this vehicle in a grave represented an immense economic sacrifice for the local community. In the Middle Iron Age, seasoned oak, imported copper, Cornish tin, and local iron were premium commodities. Current evidence suggests that instead of dismantling the chariot to recycle its valuable metals and seasoned timber, the community chose to withdraw this high-value technology from circulation permanently. Archaeologists believe the material and labor value of this single vehicle was equivalent to a massive portion of a wealthy household's annual surplus, perhaps equal to dozens of cattle. While similar vehicle burials occur in contemporary continental Europe, they remain exceptionally rare across the British Isles. The sheer scale of this economic forfeiture suggests that the person destined to receive this vehicle in the afterlife occupied the absolute apex of their society. But if this elaborate, highly decorated chariot was built to carry someone of immense power, who was the individual buried beside it? The physical remains of the individual buried at the center of this monumental tomb provide a direct connection to the human reality of Iron Age Yorkshire. Osteological analysis of the skeleton, preserved in the well-drained soils of Burnby Lane, reveals the profile of a mature adult male. He stood approximately 1.78 meters tall, a stature that placed him among the tallest men of his generation in northern Britain. His bone structure was heavily built, indicating a life of physical activity and strength. Forensic examination estimates his age at death to be between 30 and 40 years, an age where he had lived long enough to accumulate considerable social standing. His teeth show moderate wear, a common indicator of a diet heavy in coarse stone-ground cereals, while minor wear on his joints suggests a highly active lifestyle. While the burial environment suggests a life of authority, his bones tell a complex story. No definitive fatal battle wounds survive on the skeleton. There are no clean cuts from swords, no puncture marks from spears, and no blunt force trauma to indicate a violent end. The physical evidence of past conflict is limited to an older, fully healed fracture on his upper left arm. This injury had mended cleanly long before his death, demonstrating that he had survived previous trauma. His high rank is inferred directly from the burial context rather than a spectacular injury. He was placed in a crouched position, nestled directly on top of a heavy bronze shield within the chariot box. This deliberate arrangement suggests that his identity was bound to the weapons and the vehicle that accompanied him. Yet, without clear battlefield trauma, the physical evidence leaves his exact social role ambiguous. Was he an active commander, a revered leader, or both? Beside the crouched warrior and his chariot lay the remains of two horses. The skeletons were not scattered or jumbled, but fully articulated, positioned standing upright on their hind limbs as if ready to pull the vehicle forward. These were robust animals, representing a major source of traction and power in a society where horses were premium status symbols. Forensic examination of the bones reveals no cut marks or fractures associated with ordinary meat processing. Unlike typical domestic horse remains found across Iron Age settlements, these animals were not butchered. Their teeth indicate they were healthy, mature ponies, likely between 6 and 9 years old, killed at the peak of their working lives. While no definitive proof of their exact cause of death survives, current evidence suggests they were killed as a funeral sacrifice. Archaeologists believe that these horses were led into the burial area and dispatched as part of the funerary rite, their bodies carefully propped up within the grave to maintain the illusion of life. This inclusion of living animals transformed the grave from a simple repository into a highly structured scene of life and death. By burying the horses intact, still wearing their bronze-studded harness gear, the community created a permanent, silent tableau of power. The horses tied the warrior's high rank, his mobility, and his martial identity directly to the burial rite, ensuring his prestige remained visible to the crowd gathering around the open barrow. Yet the permanent withdrawal of such valuable livestock speaks to a level of social control that went far beyond mere display. What drove this community to bury such immense wealth in the ground never to be used again? Lying face down beneath the crouched skeleton of the warrior, archaeologists uncovered a remarkably preserved bronze sheet shield, measuring approximately 30 inches across. This artifact, now curated by the Yorkshire Museum, stands as one of the finest examples of British Iron Age metalwork ever recovered. Composed of several carefully joined pieces of sheet bronze, its front surface features complex, scroll-shaped latene relief designs, including fluid triple spirals and trumpet spiral motifs. A raised central spine and a prominent boss run down its center, accented by 27 brilliant red glass studs that mimic prestigious coral ornaments. The sheer workmanship required to raise these delicate relief patterns from the metal sheets highlights the exceptional skill of the smiths who forged it, marking it as an object of immense luxury. Yet the presence of such an ornate object raises a persistent debate among archaeologists. Many scholars argue that a shield of this artistic complexity was primarily ceremonial, serving as a glittering emblem of high status rather than a practical instrument of war. However, microscopic analysis has challenged this view, revealing ancient repairs and impact scars on the bronze surface, suggesting that this shield may have faced active combat before its final retirement. Whether a functional defensive weapon or a specialized protective talisman, its inclusion transforms the grave from a repository of transport into an enduring statement of personal prestige and military command. How did a community in East Yorkshire acquire an object of such unparalleled artistic sophistication? The exceptional craftsmanship of the 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐄 shield connects this individual to a broader regional phenomenon known as the Arras culture. This Middle Iron Age tradition, defined by square barrows, crouched inhumations, and occasional vehicle burials, is concentrated heavily within the Yorkshire Wolds. Rather than an isolated elite family, the cemetery at Burnby Lane belongs to a densely populated, highly structured territory. With over 70 square barrows and more than 130 burials documented at this site alone, archaeologists recognise a highly organised society. The presence of such graves across eastern Yorkshire, at sites like Wetwang Slack, Garton Slack, and Kirkburn, suggests a regional network ruled by a distinct warrior aristocracy. Scholars like Barry Cunliffe suggest that these elaborate burials served as calculated displays of status and mobility rather than random acts of grief. In a society without written records, power had to be asserted through physical, highly visible monuments. This display of authority extended far beyond local borders. The bronze work and the red glass decorative studs on the shield reflect the latene artistic style, a design tradition that originated in continental Europe. Anthropologist Miranda Aldhouse Green interprets this shared artistic vocabulary as evidence of elite connectivity. The leaders of Iron Age Yorkshire maintained close contact with the continent, participating in a vast trans-regional network of exchange that stretched across the English Channel to Gaul and the Rhineland. Julius Caesar's Commentarii de Bello Gallico describes the formidable chariot warfare of the continental tribes during the later Roman invasions of Gaul, offering a tempting parallel for these Yorkshire burials. Yet historians treat such classical texts with extreme caution. Caesar wrote about different tribes in a different region centuries later, meaning his accounts cannot serve as direct evidence for the Arras culture. Similarly, while popular imagination often links these elaborate rituals to the Druids, archaeology cannot identify such figures. Instead, J.D. Hill argues that the material evidence represents a ritual environment designed to cement social hierarchy and ancestral memory through the performance of the funeral itself. The State Heritage Agency, Historic England, recognised this immense historical value by designating the site as a scheduled monument. The 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐄𝐑𝐈𝐁𝐄 warrior belonged to a powerful, well-connected British aristocracy, firmly integrated into the wider Iron Age world. For decades, historical models often presented a relatively flat portrait of Iron Age Britain. These older interpretations frequently reconstructed a decentralized tribal territory characterized by simple pastoral farming and minimal social stratification. In these accounts, the regional populations of the north were viewed as isolated communities, largely separated from the wider currents of European civilization, and lacking the organizational structure required for monumental cooperative works. The archaeological record curated by the Yorkshire Museum and documented by Historic England forces a significant reassessment of this paradigm. A single burial assemblage from 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐄𝐑𝐈𝐁𝐄 shows a society of clear social hierarchy, highly skilled metallurgy, and organized communal ritual. Executing a funerary event of this magnitude required both the accumulation of considerable surplus wealth and the coordination of disparate skilled industries, from wheelwrights and blacksmiths to stock breeders capable of managing and sacrificing high-value draft animals. This evidence redefines the Araz culture, moving it from a localized anomaly to a highly structured, confident, and materially advanced aristocracy. These people participated directly in the prestige networks of the 𝐒𝐂�ឋ𝐄 world, sharing in its aesthetic tastes and technological standards. Because the Iron Age populations of Britain left no written records of their own, archaeology must bear the entire burden of proof. Scholars cannot rely on the biased, external accounts of classical writers to interpret this society. Instead, they must look to the physical residue of their actions. Every joint in the timber, every hammer blow on the bronze shield, and every deliberate placement of the horse skeletons offers a direct, unmediated testimony that no classical text can match. The 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐄𝐑𝐈𝐁𝐄 grave provides that concrete proof. While many questions regarding the exact political structures or religious beliefs of these people remain open, the physical reality of the Barrow Cemetery reframes the British Iron Age. It reveals a world far more complex, stratified, and interconnected than previously assumed, a society whose complexity is written in the surviving traces of iron, bronze, and stone. Today, this silent grave challenges the centuries-old narratives written by those who conquered them. It reminds us that history is never settled. It is constantly being redrawn beneath our feet, proving the ancient world was far more sophisticated than we once imagined. What do you think this discovery reveals about our shared past? Join the conversation in the comments below.